Hi everyone, David Petersen here. I'm in my studio and I wanted to share another mouse guard model with you. This time it is Conrad's ship, the Red Snapper. I built this model knowing that in the Black Axe, the mice would be on a ship for at least one full issue, pretty much. This was going to be an important location, and I needed to know all the places they could go. I didn't want it to be a huge ship. I didn't want it to be a tiny rowboat. I needed it to be something in between where maybe a couple characters could get away, maybe out of earshot of another character, but not go away and disappear. Not a maze or a labyrinth or a huge sailing vessel that would need to be crewed by more than one or two capable mice. So this is the ship. It's made out of cardboard and Bristol board, a little bit of basswood for the railing pieces, and some of the rigging, and some natural hemp twine that I had from a jewelry project from college. The beginning of this was I looked at all kinds of reference for medieval ships and medieval sailing ships and even not medieval sailing ships and lots of Google reference, trying to find something that was the shape I kind of roughly had in mind. And I kept kind of coming up with nothing. They were either too elaborate or too simple or too Viking longboat. They just didn't have exactly what I needed. So I thought, well, I could just probably come up with something. But the visualization in my mind wasn't concrete enough that I could just draw it, but it was concrete enough to be able to point to things and go, no, 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 none of those are it. So the first thing I started with was this profile, this curve here. In fact, there's a piece that's back here, this cardboard that holds the rudder, and this piece at the very front of the ship. That's all the same piece of cardboard. So I cut one arc of that. Then I cut cross sections that were this shape, kind of like ribs. If this piece is the spine, then I cut some ribs every so often and I placed them. And I started skinning it with sheets, strips of Bristol board, and then later tape. Some of that was for reinforcement. Some of it is also to kind of give me an idea of where the water line should be, which I found handy and helpful. A lot of this stuff is made out of or glued together with either rubber cement or later some hot melt glue to help reinforce it. Once that basic shape was done, it was just about creating where the decks would be. That there'd be the one deck here that I cut the one sheet of cardboard for, and then a deck at the top, which I don't know the proper term, but the deck at the top that's also a sheet of cardboard. And then lots of basswood pieces that I just kept chopping up with X-Acto knives and gluing together. The sail is a old rag, a discolored piece of cotton, and usually I have a piece of balled up paper tucked in between it and the mast, so that when it's on display, it looks like it's constantly billowing. It's got wind behind it. I made the rudder out of cardboard. I also gave it a little bit of rope rigging and a cross piece so that you could see how it would function, so that a mouse sitting back in there could actually sail the ship. There's the way I did it was that there are pulleys that help adjust the tautness of the sail. Run that line from out of these little outrigger posts inside this little cabin. That's also where the ropes for the rudder are. And so that hypothetically Conrad could pilot this ship himself. He could sail this whole thing by himself. In fact, it's kind of implied that that's what he has been doing. But this needed to be the home for 3 mice. So I needed to make it a little bit bigger, like I said. This whole thing is made out of basswood and cardboard and Bristol board, and then just time and some thought. I know people look at these things and they think they're really complex, but I guarantee you that when I was 2/3 of the way through this thing, I thought that the whole thing was a failure. I was probably going to throw the whole thing in the garbage. It wasn't turning out the way I wanted, or it wasn't going to be good enough. It wasn't going to hold up under its own weight. all those kind of things. And yet here we are, I think 7 years later since I built this thing, and it needed a few repairs here and there. In fact, I just did a repair before starting to do the video with a little super glue. But by having this model, I'm able to visualize where characters can be. I can show different angles if the boat's coming at you like this. If it's a top down, I can actually disconnect the ropes and roll the sail up so that I have a better view. If I wanted to do a top down right now, you can see obviously the sail's in the way, but I can get that sail out of the way and show all these different nooks and crannies, and it helped me figure out where Conrad would be. There's one scene in particular where there's 3 characters in the scene, and I needed Conrad, one character, to not hear what the other 2 were saying. And so I put him back nestled in this little, his little alcove, his little cabin, so to speak, even though it's open on the front, where all the controls for the ship would be, while the other 2 are either up on this very front high deck or just in front of it here. And that made all the difference to be able to visualize how the story would be told, where the locations were. If I do have characters sitting there, what's the cool shot? Is the cool shot from top down, from the rear looking this way, profile, through the railing? All of those things I can now visualize and get a better sense by having this. And like I said, I could not figure out how to draw this boat until I had built a full model of it. So that is the Red Snapper, Conrad's ship. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.